I think by now everybody is getting very excited and you have some burning questions that you really want to ask. But last but not least, we've got one interesting speaker, Cynthia Gabriel, from the Center to Combat Corruption and Cronyism, an MPPJ councillor. The importance of open data at a local council level. This is where open data will find its relevance to the people on the street itself. Can I welcome Cynthia Gabriel?
Good afternoon, everyone. Are you still here? Okay, great. My name is Cynthia Gabriel, as introduced by our moderator just now. I wear two hats. The first is, of course, civil society organization called Center to Combat Corruption and Cronyism. The second is what I'm here today to speak to you. I'm also a member of the Petaling Jaya City Council, and I got to be in the system when the opposition parties won several key states in 2008. And that's when the political landscape changed a lot. So they opened up several seats to professionals and non-governmental organizations. So I'm not a political party representative, but I'm there as a civil society member. And by being a civil society representative, there were several things that I could say and do without having to follow party lines and follow general directions of the party. So there were several of us, there were 25% of us who sat in the council and tried to work various initiatives on opening up government at the local government level, which is supposed to be the third tier of government. Now, we don't have local elections in Malaysia, so this is what happened. And the promise of the opposition parties when they actually got to Putrajaya eventually was to re-implement local council elections. So when that happens, if and when that happens, we'll have to hold them to account. So my task today is to tell you the real struggle when it comes to residents, associations, people trying to access information at local government level. And I have the experience of both, so I completely sympathize with activist friends like Jeffrey and many other civil society resident representative leaders who try to get very, very basic information on issues surrounding local authority powers. And these are about the potholes that we have to drive through every day, how our car gets spoiled because we go into a big hole, or uncollected waste, illegal dumping, stuff like that actually takes place. And we don't have a way to communicate, to engage with local council. We don't have a way to get information on when the road is going to be repaired, when the garbage is going to be picked up, and so on and so forth. So after hearing my two friends who actually have told us how powerful technology can actually be, despite the restrictive situation in Malaysia, it's actually quite heartening to know that there are many ways we can try to push local government and to push governments at various levels to be more accountable, to be more responsive, and to actually believe that engagement with people is the right way to go. So let me give you a couple of examples. When we first got into the council, there was also a promise to implement a freedom of information enactment by the opposition parties who called themselves Pakatan Rakyat at that time. So two states came up with an enactment. It was passed. Now we have a freedom of information enactment in Selangor and in Penang. So this is by no means an amazing feat in Malaysia, because we also have the Official Secrets Act that supersede all acts when it comes to government data. Now, when we go for council meetings, for example, every document that is given to us councillors, every meeting minutes, full board minutes are all chopped as sulit, which means confidential. There are also documents that are chopped as terhad, which means limited. And if you look at the Official Secrets Act, there are various levels of how you classify documents. So which means all government data on the onset are secret. So it makes it an extremely difficult situation for Malaysians, ordinary residents, to actually find out very simple things. If a clogged drain is going to be repaired, if something about their local plan is affecting their neighborhood, how will they access that information? Because it's sulit. Now, the only way to get that information is for the mayor or the chief minister to declassify the documents. And at every government agency, there is an officer who is tasked to look at classification of documents and request to declassify and so on. So the Freedom of Information enactment that came about in 2009 and 10 in Selangor and Penang actually provided a very interesting balance or scenario in which Malaysians could finally test, put in applications to get information. Now, I'll give you an example of when Petaling Jaya had its local plan. Every 5 years, we have the local plan allowable for applications to change the status of the zone. Local plan means it's like a local constitution of our area. So if you know that there is a river flowing by your house, or there is a big recreational open space opposite your house, you know that you cannot build a high-rise condominium or a tall structure on an open field. So you have to make sure that that open field is left an open field for the benefit of the residents there. So this is very powerful information, very basic information that we need to have. But if we don't have access to actually looking at what kind of applications are being put in to change the zone, every 5 years we can actually apply to change the zone. And Petaling Jaya is actually very close to Kuala Lumpur, so you find that land value has gone up, developers want to build, and with all this rapid development, open spaces have become really problematic. So in our last objection hearing, the tussle between the people and the public sector officials became so real because the public sector officials' mindset is still back to how it was decades ago, where sharing information with the public was actually seen as a big worry, a big threat, because they weren't really sure if the information was going to be misused or used in a way that will make the council look bad, or they would go to the press and talk to the media about the development plans and so on and so forth. So there was one issue in which the PKNS field along the LDP, those of you who are familiar with the Lebuh Raya Damansara Puchong, if you go by, there is a 26-hectare field that is still the only last open space that is in that area. And when that field was up for development, there was an immense fight for what was actually the zone of that area. Was it green? Was it limited commercial? Was it commercial? Could it be built? And we found that our public sector staff in the planning department were changing the information to suit the directives of the people at the top, because they wanted to look at enhanced land value. If it was commercial, of course it would cost about 20 times more than if it was left as a recreational area. So the residents in Petaling Jaya were trying very hard to get details of the local plan and what was happening. There were councillors like us who were trying to give it to them, and we were told not to share the reports yet because there were various versions and so on. And then we found that some of the council staff acted incorrectly and inappropriately because they weren't actually allowed to alter the documents without going through the due process. So this is one example. The other example is, how many of you have heard of the KIDEX highway? KIDEX? Yes, okay, many. Okay, KIDEX was finally cancelled by the Selangor state government, but it was a really controversial project that cost 2.42 billion. It was going to break through the city of Petaling Jaya, an elevated highway that was part of a range of highways. Now, it was going to cut through Petaling Jaya, meaning that it was going to cut through various various parts of the city, and all neighborhoods were going to be asked to evacuate, and so on and so forth. So about 60,000 homes would be displaced if KIDEX actually came into being. So despite having a Freedom of Information Act in Selangor, many residents who applied for information on the highway were told that they could not get the information because there was an Official Secrets Act in place, and because this was a project that involved the national government, we could not actually share the information with the residents. So they filed several test cases at the Selangor state government. They could not actually get the information, and after a lot of advocacy and rallying and all that, and with the change of a new Menteri Besar, the project was called off temporarily. Now these are some examples in which the fight and the struggle for residents to obtain information is very real. And it's about very, very basic things. But despite that, because there are some councillors in there that know the value of information. Information is power. So with the kind of technology that we heard from my two colleagues just now, information is actually something that will allow people to make more informed decisions. And this is something that our government has kept away from us. So open data really seems like a very revolutionary way of us to move forward. We can go around the laws, we can go around the restrictive systems to find ways in which we can connect with each other. Because if we start getting all this information, also about relationship between government and business, between how government does business with the private sector, that would actually enable us to make more informed choices. Now, the other area that was touched on earlier was the area of procurement. We now have a system of open tenders. Previously, open tenders was not a reality, and many contracts were directly negotiated. Now, this was another platform for corruption to surface and for corruption to rise. Now, this is the season of corruption, and we know so many things have gone wrong because of the issues of conflict of interest and how abuse of powers have taken place with government-linked companies and so on and so forth. So open tenders have been a way in which we have actually allowed the system to open up. Sharing advertisements in the newspapers, in major newspapers, so that people can bid for tenders and people can actually bid for better ways in which services can be rendered. Now, my one more point before I show you a PowerPoint slide is to actually look at the issue of services delivery. Now, local authorities' responsibility primarily is to deliver services. So I mentioned just now, when it comes to maintaining roads or picking up garbage, keeping the city clean, keeping the health sector well managed. We now have a dengue menace in our society, which is very, very difficult to control. More and more people are getting dengue, the cities are getting dirtier, the roads are getting dirtier, and so on and so forth. But we also are trying very hard to find ways to improve services delivery. So there are very serious problems about how contracts are awarded. Even though we have an open tender system, we still have many problems when it comes to awarding contracts. So we award contracts to contractors who don't have sufficient capacity and skills sometimes, because the type of contractors that can bid for local authority jobs come from a certain class, which are Class F contractors, for example. So it links back to the issue of capacity, skill, and whether these contractors actually have the necessary money, budgets to carry things out, and so on and so forth. But this information is not actually shared with the public. it's all so late and it's still under official secrets. So we are not actually allowed to evaluate if a contractor that is taking care of the green fields around our house or cleaning the drains around our area are actually doing a good job. So the responsiveness of government and people are still very, very poor. We have not been able to create effective channels between the residents' associations, people's voices, and the way in which government can actually execute and carry out their duties properly. So knowing that all these things were happening and that residents were getting more and more impatient despite change of government, despite promises of a more accountable service delivery system, at the civil society level, we at the Center to Combat Corruption and Cronyism, we created a project called My Clean City. It is a way of getting residents' voice organized in order to build responsiveness and in order to build engagement with council staff. So the reform of the public sector staff needed to start from a collective organizing of residents. Now, My Clean City is a mobile app. It's applicable for Petaling Jaya residents. It's available for download on iOS and Android phones. And My Clean City, it's a simple concept of actually allowing people to post their complaints online and to be able to just snap a photo if you see an illegal dump site or a pothole in the road. All you need to do is to snap a photo, make sure your GPS location is on, and then you upload it online. Now, the benefit of this is it drives a transparency revolution through the council system, because my complaint will now be seen by you, and your complaint will now be seen by me, and everyone can see each other's complaints. Now, this is the process of how it works. The resident will upload the pictures up online, and then we have a moderator. My colleague Sean is here, and we can show you how it works later. So the complaints officer will receive the complaint, and it took really a lot of effort to talk to our IT, and I'm in there as a council member, and it was still so difficult to actually get MPPJ's system to talk to our system. So they finally, I'm not sure whether this is the first time, but I think it is. Finally, the local council system opened up in a very real way. They actually opened up their system to a community-based app so that we can now start talking to each other. So complaints officer will receive the complaint, and then it will, within 24 hours, there will be a reference number issued to the complainant. And then the complaint will be treated as formal. And to formalize the complaint took really a lot of efforts, despite a very good buy-in from the state government EXCO instructing the council to accept the complaints. They refused to accept it. They pretended the complaints on the app didn't exist until we had to work within the system with MPPJ to accept the complaints as formal. So which means we had to go through a process of many meetings, many discussions with the mayor and all that. Now finally it's integrated. So we get a complaint here, so it will be C1055, C1027, whatever. And then there is a service level agreement time that will be listed. So if the complaint is very urgent, which means that if it's a pothole that can cause a motorcyclist to die if he goes in, or a tree that falls across the road and could cause accidents, those kind of things need to be sorted out within 24 hours. The important but not so urgent, within 48 hours. Now the service level agreement times are MPPJ's agreed times. So we hold them accountable based on the time. So in terms of open data, this is what we have done. We have opened their system. We have connected our system with theirs. There is a complaint number that's received. The complaint gets resolved. And then there is a status that says solved, not solved. If not solved, the idea is that we gang up, we pool our numbers together, and we go talk to MPPJ about why there has been a delay in several departments, in several agencies and all that. So there is a dashboard of data that is available, and you can actually get information online quite instantly on what are the different complaints that have not been resolved, what have been resolved, which agency or department has been more inefficient than others, and so on. Okay, and then I think the few other services of the app, interesting is that there is a residents think box that allows residents to give ideas on improvement of the council. The resident think box is a way in which we generate good ideas, but in big cities, you know that everyone wants to sound smarter than the other. So we say, okay, you get 50 people to endorse your idea, then we will arrange a meeting in which the mayor can pick up your ideas immediately. So the endorsement is important. It's not individuals just giving ideas, but within a resident community, they can come up with very good initiatives.
Cynthia, you've
Catching the culprit. Catching the culprit is another way of helping the council by being whistleblowers. So if you know that someone's dumping illegal garbage at your neighborhood or in a cul-de-sac area, you take a photo, you send it to them, or those along banners, you pull it down, you pass it to the council. We are developing a reward system between the council and the people.
Cynthia, you got
so
1 minute
these are
more.
ways in which we hope more information through the app and the sites can actually be shared to ensure a sense of empowerment, that people feel that they can take part in developing policy at local government level, developing policy at city level, so that they will be able to inform the council over different policies and measures. And finally, of course, is participating in budgets. So by being able to use the app and do all these things, they will also be able to implement a couple of ideas more concretely as a result of participation of the people and policies that they want in Budget 2016, Budget 2017, and so on. Okay, thank you very much.